And welcome everybody to another episode of Who's Got Clout, hosted on Clout Forum with me, Mark Bentley from Perth, Western Australia, and our beloved Alex Roken, founder of Clout Forum, who's tuning in from over in Russia. And today we have a very special guest for many reasons, our beloved Mubs. How you doing, Mubs?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing really well, my man. Really well. I was having a hard time not starting to talk to you before the podcast. You know, we always, people watching this right now, we always kind of meet up a few minutes earlier, and it's so hard for me not to start talking because I know all the gold starts happening. So that's now, Mubs, before we get started, for anyone that hasn't come across you, so you know, we're streaming this at the moment on YouTube, on Twitch, and out there around the place. So if you haven't come across Mubs before, I just want to give a little bit of a background for people and then we'll jump in. So Mubs, sorry, I should call you by your name, Mubs.
No, that's fine. Everybody calls me Mubs, so let's just stick with that. Yeah. It's absolutely fine.
All right, beautiful. So Mubs, you've covered so many different things. And one of the things I've seen with you is that, you know, one of the things I think that stands out beyond everything, and this says a lot, is the compassion and the open-heartedness you have in the way you interact with the community, the actual love and passion you have for a bigger picture than just your own benefit in this. And to go with that, the reason I say that means a lot is because not only, you know, when I say that, you are such an incredible man when it comes to creating. I mean, you've created more than 100 side projects. You're the CTO of Founder Path, which is bringing, from my understanding, I want to talk a bit more about this, but bringing funding to projects that are up and coming and really making things possible. And, you know, you've pretty much been involved in pretty much something that everyone on this platform will have touched at some point, I'd say, as well as the generative NFT collection, which I also want to drop into during this time, obviously a big topic. So with that being said, If you are watching the live stream, you're welcome to join us in the Zoom room to help co-create the conversation in the chat. The Zoom link is on cloutforum.org. So cloutforum.org. Give that a click in your browser and you'll see a link to join us live. So jump in, you can help ask questions, throw comments in for Mubs. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, also chuck your comments in there and Alex and I will be watching that and keeping an eye on it. So with that all said, let's have some fun, Mubs. So
absolutely.
First things first, where's that accent from?
Yeah, so although I was born in Pakistan, my family moved to England when I was about 4 years old. So for all of my schooling years and everything, I was raised just on the outskirts of London in England. And even though I've now been in the United States for about, well, actually over 20 years now.
Wow, that long.
But the accent has stuck.
Yeah, you threw me there because I thought that accent's pretty fresh still. So that was my next question. You know, how long you been in New York? So 20 years, eh?
1997 was when I moved to San Francisco, and then I moved to the East Coast a few years after that. And so, and I've been on the East Coast ever since. But yeah, I've been here for a while now.
That's unreal. So what was it that got you to move over to San Francisco originally, away from London?
Actually, funny story. I was talking about this with some folks last week too. But so when I was in England, just graduated from university, working for the second biggest software company in the world called Oracle. About 3 months into that job, a little tiny little internet startup from Australia offered me a job in the UK. And then after about 3 months of working with them in the UK, they said, oh, we're going to move the company from Australia to San Francisco. Do you want to move to San Francisco as well? And so that was how that kind of ended up. Yeah, they basically said, do you want to move to the US? And I said, absolutely. And yeah, so a few months later, I was in the States.
So an opportunity in Australia led to you moving over to USA.
Yeah,
fair enough. So I can see, Mubs, you've been down the rabbit hole for a long time. So DeSo is nothing new to you, huh?
No, and that's, I mean, that's part of why. I mean, like, I know you know. Thank you for the awesome intro. You know, I do really appreciate that. But I've been around like new technology, new platforms, new environments pretty much my whole career. Like the whole internet thing was pretty new when I started working on it, and there was a lot of people who didn't believe in it, who didn't understand it, and because they didn't understand it, they just kind of ignored it or kind of pushed it away and said it was just a fad. It wasn't going to take hold and all that kind of stuff. So I've heard all of these things many times over many different technologies and many different platforms over the years, which I think has given me a lot of compassion over the years, because I've been involved in being so sort of instrumental in trying to expose what's possible with kind of a lot of these platforms. And when you constantly hear no, this is crap, this is rubbish, and then eventually you kind of say, well, see, I told you there was something here, and so it kind of reminds you that it's not in 99% of those cases, it's not people wishing you ill will or anything like that. They just really haven't taken the time to understand what's possible with these new things and what the full potential is. And once they take the time to really explore it, then they come to understand it as well. And so I try and be understanding as well.
Yeah, it can be challenging at times. So it's one of those things I appreciate, that, you know, it takes a certain kind of mindset, doesn't it? Like a creative mindset to be able to see forwards from here. The polymath mindset, I should say, the ability to look at the many fields working together. And that isn't the natural state that's taught in schools and things like that. So, no. Yeah. So have you found yourself getting worked up at times over that journey over the last 20 years or so of being involved in that? Or have you always kind of had that kind of gentleness within you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always been a fairly level-headed and sort of calm person. So, you know, so I do, I think I mean a lot of that came from, I mean, I started to code and write software and build software, and started working with computers when I was about 8 years old. So I've always had that patience to kind of like try and work things out without necessarily throwing things around, and so yeah, so I've always been fairly even keeled and sort of all that kind of stuff. So I think that's really helped me sort of over the years, just like I said, because as long as people aren't on purpose trying to kind of throw FUD around and kind of things like that, I'm usually pretty I'm pretty calm and take the time to explain why I think things will work, or they aren't a scam or whatever it is. But yeah, so that, I mean, occasionally when it's clear that people have the wrong intentions, then I can get a little bit angry, but normally I'm pretty even and try and help.
Yeah. No, I hear. And I think that's important as well, right? Like, I think sometimes myself personally, I was always a kind of, overly positive, overly understanding. And then sometimes, you kind of let people get away with a lot, where it's like, I've learned in the last years of growing up a bit that sometimes you got to have a firm hand, but it doesn't mean you can't be compassionate with that firm hand, right? Yeah. Like if someone starts with the wrong intentions, sometimes it does need a little fire just to pull it back into line, but that can be done with love still.
Yeah, and it also shows that you care about the thing that you're all kind of talking about and things like that too. Because if you don't show any of that passion, then people are like, okay, are you really committed to this thing anyway as well? So yeah, I do think it's important to kind of show some strength as well.
That's a really good point. Really, really good point. So jumping to one of the things that kind of, the one ring that rules us all right now and brings us together is, DeSo, right? Decentralized social blockchain. That's how we've kind of all come together and connected, and it's been one hell of an adventure. But so what's your origin story? I'm sure you've told this many times, but how did you get to DeSo? What was it that woke you up?
Oh, I mean, I've been around, just like I said, I've been around and always looking for like new things and new technologies and new ideas and things like that. So I mean, I found DeSo back in March, like a lot of other people did. I was on Product Hunt. It was in Clubhouse rooms. People were talking about it all the time and things like that. So that was my exposure to it. But I've been just interested in new stuff. So anytime something new comes around, I'm the first to kind of try it out and kind of see what it's all about and see if it makes sense for what I think's happening. So that finding new things is not hard for me, and it's something I try and do actively. So finding this was kind of intentional. Obviously, I wasn't looking for DeSo specifically, but I'm always looking for something new.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. So, and is this had you looked into other attempts at decentralized social blockchains, platforms? Have you done much looking into that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I've things like Mastodon and Rally with the social tokens and things like that. I spent long time trying to figure out like what the alternatives to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those social platforms are. I mean, other people have tried similar efforts in the past, not specifically on the blockchain, but just in general, try and build platforms that are more open. And seen what people have tried and also seen why they haven't worked, just in terms of why they haven't scaled out. Because like I think Mastodon's been around for 6-7 years now, and it hasn't really made any inroads against the established kind of social media platforms out there as well. So absolutely explored a lot of platforms out there.
No, so that gives me even more confidence in everything that you bring to the table, right? Because as me personally, it got a good friend of mine, Dan Regan. He sent it to me because usually, he doesn't have time to look in, but he knows I'm into all this stuff. So he sends it to me. He goes, "Hey, can you go check this out?" Right? And I saw it and I fell in love straight away. It's like I recognized what was there. The polymath brain goes off, and all of a sudden I see the future of like how all these dots, politics, economics, how all these things can start playing together. But that was one of those things that I've questioned myself a little bit, over the 6 months, 7 months, whatever it's been, every now and then thinking, am I being just overly, like, just blinkered? Am I only looking at this in very fantastical eyes? And every now and then it's, I go out and check. So it's always nice when I come across someone like yourself, so deeply involved, that chose to continue to be deeply involved with that kind of background. So what was it about DeSo that kind of made you go kind of all in on it?
I think what really struck me was that it wasn't just one thing, right? Like, I think a lot of the other platforms in the past have tried to solve one facet of the problem with Twitter and Facebook, and like I said, like with Mastodon, they kind of just approached it from a federation standpoint. They want separation from each. It's they kind of treat it like email, where everybody has their own server and you can send them messages around. So that whole kind of decentralization and kind of separate the feed out, so that you can run your own and kind of own your own thing in it. So that was kind of cool. And then sites like things like Rally have introduced the idea of social tokens and things like that. I think what I really liked about DeSo was that they just pulled it all together into one place. And for a lot of people, the ease of how easily you can do all of these things, especially from a social media perspective, I think is really important. And it when everything's all kind of split up and on different platforms and things like that, people have been using things like Patreon to kind of do support, and they've been trying to do different things on different platforms, which makes them really kludgy to work with. And where am I supposed to go to find this and find that? I get lost in kind of a lot of that too. And I just think about the people who aren't highly technical, trying to do all these same things. And so when I came to DeSo, it was like, well, my feed's right here. I can buy coins right here. I can support people right here. I can interact with people. I can do all of the things I want to do in one place. And all of a sudden you're like, well, that kind of clicks, because it's like anybody, once they've signed up for DeSo, it's all right here. You don't have to like have 5 or 6 different places that you go and visit and stuff like that. So that to me was, I think, the thing that kind of stood out right from the beginning, was that they've actually thought about the whole end-to-end platform rather than just trying to solve one thing.
Man, it's and that was the thing as well for me. Like, it really hit home. So it was that everything in one place, at least like one login that can get into many things, right? Because I struggled so much with Patreon, with all these things, because I'm a single full-time daddy since my boy is 4 years old, right? So it's maybe 8 years now. So trying to do what I love, do my work, make enough money to get by, and be a parent and all those things. And so I had the following on Facebook. I had all these bits and pieces. I was offering private sessions, but trying to get the word out without having to pay huge amounts of money for advertising, then trying to get your followers to go on a Patreon or something. And then it's just those these days, right? It's like, if it takes more than one click, people are like, oh, that's hard work. It takes a lot of time. And it's just complicated. It's like, no, it's just 2 clicks. It's like, So it's like being able to have it all in this one spot. You're right. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful how, and like I think you were saying earlier, might have been before we started, but in fact, it was before we started when you were talking to Alex, that you were saying that, we are so early that everyone wins who's engaging right now. Right. So what do you mean by that, for those that didn't get to be part of that conversation?
No, I think I was just saying that right now, at least, I think it's less about competition and more about like spreading the word and just showing what's possible. Because I think right now, if you're here, if you own some DeSo, if some people own your coin, like, it's only up from here. Because obviously if it fails from here, what have we lost anyway? We haven't really lost anything. But if this succeeds, it's like going back to 2010 and buying Bitcoin, and going back 5 years and buying Ethereum and sort of all those kind of things. So if we start worrying about beating other people on the platform right now, we're basically just kind of robbing each other. And it's also, we'll be quibbling about like 2 or 3 percentage points. That's the thing that's the thing I talk about right now. It's like, but really what you're talking about is the potential for like, 5, 10, 1,000% gains from here. So why quibble about the small percentages right now?
That's such a good point. Like, even if all you've got is $5 a DeSo right now, that's
right.
Even that has huge potential, right? So,
right.
Hey, Mubs, just before we go on, Alex was just letting me know there's a whole bunch of comments cranking out on YouTube at the moment.
Okay.
And I just wanted to do a big shout out because I think some of them have to jump off to head to the Tampa gathering. So that's happening at the moment. So just Clout trends. So Darian's posted, I'm packing for the Tampa DeSo beach meetup. So I might have to catch up on a bit of this next week, but excited to hear what is new with you. So that's Darian.
Awesome.
Big shout out, Darian. He says, if you haven't come across Mubs yet, you are doing it wrong. Absolutely agree. Paul Burke's tuning in. Hey, fam. Hey, Paul. We got BitClout Rhinelf saying, what's up, guys? We got Cassius Cuvée, who was on the podcast just a couple of days ago, saying, DeSo baby. He's watching while in Uber in Tampa. So look at this, Mubs. This is how much community love is there for you, that everyone's on their way to a gathering, but they still want to tune in and get to hear what's going on. Hunter Paulson is in, saying the main man, Mubs. And he said he hopped on YouTube to study for my exam tomorrow, but figured I'd pop in since I saw Mubs. Haha.
Awesome.
So there you go. You're a popular man, Mubs.
That's
so
good.
Now, so along that note, was there any thoughts of going to Tampa? I'm assuming that you're not heading there.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
You're upstate?
Yeah, I'm upstate, and yeah, we actually have some stuff happening this weekend with the family and stuff. So I'm sticking around home.
Yeah. So you're a family man as well. So you find time for all of this within that, huh?
I certainly am. Yeah, my oldest is in high school, so yeah.
Gotcha. How old's the youngest? If you don't mind me asking.
13.
13. Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah, my boy Felix is 11, so he's just finishing primary school this year. They've changed it in Australia. They start high school in year 7. It's all a bit different, but
okay.
Yeah, it's exciting though. It's like I'm watching him. He's 11 years old, and I've just watched this intellect wake up, right? And I'm seeing him now designing planes, on these computer games they've got these days, where they're like, the game, it's like they're coding and pairing the controls with the motors and I'm watching it going, hang on, this is like circuitry. Games these days are educating about everything.
Yeah. I've tried to. I've not pushed my kids to get into computers and coding and stuff like that, but we can talk about it in a little bit. But I had my 13-year-old actually. So the first NFT series that I dropped on DeSo, I had my 13-year-old draw all of the artwork for it instead. So because I can't draw at all, so my kids are pretty artistic. So I had them work on that instead.
That's fantastic. Well, hey, this is a great segue into NFTs and all the rest. So awesome. What was that series called? I'm so far behind on the NFT side of things.
Yeah. So the first generative series that I dropped was just a small little test run that I did. It was called Chixels was the name of it. And so it was like a 20 collection series, mostly to test the software that I was working on kind of at the time, which was this whole, so I built this software called Pixar, which is inspired by Pixar, obviously, but for NFTs, so hence the Nixar. But it was because DeSo doesn't have smart contracts. Right now, if you want to mint a large number of NFTs, you basically have to manually create a post on DeSo. You have to convert it into an NFT. You have to start an auction. Somebody comes along, has to bid on the item, and then you have to accept the bid. So that's kind of how the flow of kind of NFTs work. But in the Ethereum world and sort of on other chains, people have these generative collections that have 10,000 items in them. And so to have to do that manually for 10,000 things would take a really long time and be really painful for everybody. But without smart contracts, you can't really do it on the chain, on DeSo. So I built some software, which is basically just a website that you can visit depending on which drop you're looking at. And through the sort of magic of the software, you send it some DeSo to an account, which is associated with that particular collection. And then the software in the background handles all the rest of it for you. So it picks one of the images from the collection at random, makes a post on the blockchain, converts that post into an NFT, and then transfers that NFT to the person who wants to own it. So I wrote the software, and then to test it out, I got my tutor to draw some artwork, and then we created 20 chicken sort of images. We called the collection Chixels, and so there's 20 Chixels out on the blockchain just as like a first test run of the software. And then and so then I took that software and we did the Spookies collection and the Pixel Pirates collection, which had 500 items and 420 items in it instead. With obviously much larger once I was happy that software was actually working.
Yeah, it's always nice to check that first time.
Right.
And they were a smash hit, weren't they? It looked like they were going off on the platform.
They both sold out within the first couple of days of being available. So we sold 500 Spookies in about, I think in the end, there were some issues with the launch of that one, just because of size and scale and things like that. We put them on sale the first day. We paused and kind of reassessed things, and then we sold out the sort of next day. With Pixel Price, we actually planned the pre-sale the first day, and then we were going to let people kind of share what they mined in the pre-sale, and then we were going to have the public sale the sort of next day. And we sold out in total. So for the Pixel Pirates, I think it took, I think I measured it, and it took 2 hours and 45 minutes for it to sell out between the two days that the pre-sale and the public sale was actually happening. So it was pretty amazing.
That is incredible, especially when you consider, like, everyone, as we say, we're so early in the phase of this, between, what is it, like 2,000 to 4,000 daily active users approximately, give or take, depending the day. And yet we're seeing this passion, this fire, this excitement, people getting engaged. So I think it's safe to say, of those 2,000 to 4,000, they're like dedicated users, where we got real users underway here. That's
absolutely. Incredible. Yeah, I mean, I think we ended up having, so you obviously buy multiple of the 420 Pixel Price that we sold. I think in the end, we made it so you could buy 6 each, kind of, if sort of each account could buy 6 each if they wanted to. But we had 199 different accounts purchase at least one Pixel Pirate. So
that's incredible.
So that's pretty good for such a small community, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, are there any drops that we should be keeping an eye out for? Those of us that are, because I've missed these last couple because I've been so busy looking at all these other sides of DeSo and things. Now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's time to get more involved in NFTs. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, okay, I need to catch up now.
Yeah, I'm in talks with a few more artists out there. Don't have anything scheduled yet, but there probably will be some more drops in the next few weeks.
So we'll keep our eyes open. Keep our eyes open for sure. So that's incredible. So, and this is a really good point that you're bringing up. So anyone that's watching this who's fairly new to this, because of course you have a massive fan club in the developer community, in the NFT community, people know you through all these different things. But there's a lot of people that are just general creators, right? They're coming on, they're doing art, they're doing different things. And a lot of this stuff might be like, oh, this is very technical. But one of the things that I think is so important to take away from everything you've just shared for everybody is really understanding that we're building this blockchain, this future together right now, right? Like, you know, between yourself and so many others, whether people are building code or whether they're building community and energy and positivity, or whether they're building, you know, art and entertainment, whatever it is, everyone's building, right? And so in this, it's one of those things that when you're on the cutting edge of something new, there's always teething issues, right? There's always, it's like when a child's born, there's always contractions, you know, like I'm sure we're all familiar with the cries as a baby's coming, you know, this passionate, and it's kind of the same with projects, right? Like there's almost like that birthing contraction. And so I think it's important to understand that, because I see a lot of people who haven't had the benefit and the experience of seeing these things underway, joining the platform, and then kind of being a little bit, you know, and I say this lightly, you know, entitled in a sense of like expecting it to be a polished product. And I tell you what, I can remember, do you remember, Mubs, with Facebook, when Facebook used to update their theme and style, and they do an update and everyone would get so pissed off and say it's the worst thing in the world. But then they got used to it and it was better. And so, you know, as good as Facebook can get, but of course. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to really highlight that. Yeah.
And not just on Facebook, but I mean, I remember when Twitter was going through its scaling issues too. Like every other day, the server would be down and you couldn't see the feed, and you know, things like that too. So, and yeah, I mean, I guess we're getting to the point where, you know, the sort of internet is so mature now that we expect all these applications to work flawlessly and perfectly. And frankly, if DeSo was just a regular, normal, run-of-the-mill kind of software application, it wasn't doing anything new, it was just using the standard web technologies, you know, you would probably expect that as well. But again, we're trying to do new things here. We're trying to put a social we're trying to put a social network onto the blockchain, which is fairly new technology kind of in and of itself, and then trying to scale it and add NFTs into the mix and do all these other things as well. So absolutely, we're going to hit some issues that we haven't considered, we haven't thought about. But you know, those are good problems to be experiencing, because you know, as we experience them, we kind of solve them, and then you know, we just end up being light years ahead of all of the other platforms out there.
Right. It's the ones that have the courage to do it that get out the front, right? So what's your thoughts, putting you on the spot a little bit, what are your thoughts? Because I know I've been listening to some of Nada's interviews recently and different things, and I love the fact that he says, you know, whether DeSo is the chain or not, if it helps towards it being done, just decentralized socials is such a vital aspect, and for humanity, really, for our progress going forwards, right? So what's your feelings on DeSo being a core like the Ethereum for finance? Like, you know, what do you feel like it is for? Do you think we have a real potential here?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen any alternatives that really, you know, that really strike me as, you know, big competitors yet. Now, you know, is it going to be the thing for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, next 20 years? I don't know, right? Like, I mean, just like Facebook and Twitter weren't the first social media platforms out there either. You know, we don't know what else has to appear yet, so we don't know what's going to happen. But in terms of what's available right now, I don't really see anything else, you know, kind of taking its spot yet. But you know, I kind of also caution. I mean, I've said in the past too that I don't see us killing Twitter and Facebook immediately, you know, sort of in the short term anyway. So it's not like we're going to replace what's out there. So it's a matter of becoming another option for people when they want to. I mean, obviously, we're still, you know, we're kind of early in the decentralized social world. We're also early in the crypto world. We're also early in the NFT world. But also, you know, there's some aspects of the platform that not everybody on the planet will want to use, and things like that. So I don't see any of this stuff as a zero sum game, right?
Mm.
Like just because DeSo's here, it doesn't mean people are going to stop using Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. But I think they'll be using it as well as in kind of a lot of
Yeah.
instances. But I mean, obviously there'll be some people who'll be like, okay, I'm never going to go back to Facebook ever again, which is awesome. But for a lot of other people, it doesn't make sense, or at least I don't think it will make sense for a long time.
Mm. I'm hearing you, man. And interestingly enough, I've just kind of started using Facebook again recently. I deleted my account and all the followers and everything. If it had been built on the DeSo blockchain, I could have brought my followers with me, but I didn't. And it was in a passionate blaze of like, thank God, because I've been wanting to get rid of it for a long time. Now, 7 months in, I'm sitting here going, but how am I going to bridge everyone back over here again?
Right.
I'm like, okay. So now I'm saying, okay, we need to be understanding that there's got to be a bridge, over time, different people will be ready. And as we go, and I like the, the Buckminster Fuller, the saying, he once said many years ago that, instead of trying to fight the old, like trying to win over Twitter and Instagram and these characters, rather just build a better solution that will just draw people over. And that's what I love about the way the team's working, the way that all of, the community, the developer community, it really feels like there is that kind of attitude of like, just don't even give them attention. Let's just build and create a new way. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, because ultimately we're trying to we're trying to give people a new model or a new way of being able to interact on sort of online in social media platforms, and it's not like we're just trying to say, look, here's an alternative that works the same way, but we're just going to be incrementally better. No, we're actually giving them an entirely new way of being able to do things. And like I said, for some people, it's not going to make sense for a long time, just because they're entrenched in the way that Facebook and Twitter and sort of those things work right now. But for a lot of people who are looking for an alternative, I think it's a fine solution, and one that kind of as we said, long term, kind of makes a lot more sense for everybody. But you can't force people to see that either.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. It's the human condition, it's like having compassion for that it takes time. So last question before I hand you over to Alex. And I always say this, I joke around with Alex. It's so hard. 40 minutes cutting my time. So I'm going to go 2 minutes over, Alex, with this last question. But it's around, because there's just been recently announced the hackathon, right?
Yeah.
So for those of us who are not part of the developer kind of previously, like I'm starting to feel the urge to learn code. So I'm sitting there going, it looks like my boy and I are going to learn together next year. But for those that aren't deeply involved in development previously, what is a hackathon and why is that important and a good thing for the DeSo chain that's coming up?
Yeah, hackathons are just, I mean, most when you build software, it just takes a lot of time, right? And not just time in terms of actual like work that you do, but just in terms of like understanding what the requirements are, and having an idea, and then taking that idea, exploring that idea, and then actually figuring out, okay, what do we want to build, and then actually taking the time to actually code it up and to kind of launch it and stuff. That that can take weeks, months sometimes. And part of the problem normally is that it just takes time to get everybody to the table, because just schedule wise, and you need to talk to the UI UX people, you need to talk to the experience people, you need to talk to the sort of product people in terms of what the plan is long term. And so all those things can just take time, not in terms of actual work, but just like calendar time, just because it takes organization and stuff. With a hackathon, the sort of idea is that you get everybody into a room somewhere, or even if it's online, but everybody sets aside a weekend or an evening, or like even if it's just 24 hours in some cases, or it can be a weekend in some cases, where everybody just kind of clears their schedule, their calendar, and says, okay, for the next 24 hours, next 48 hours, we're going to focus on this one project, or we're going to focus on this one thing, and we're just going to build something and we're going to launch it. And so it can be very awesome. You can go from zero, having no idea even, but that you want to build something, and within 48 hours you can you kind of work within small teams, within 4 or 5 people teams, or even smaller than that, sort of in the past. And you just work on something for 48 hours straight. I mean, I've done hackathons. Well, I've done things like startup weekends, which are 54 hours. I've done hackathons, which are 48 hours. And you get maybe 3 or 4 hours sleep in that weekend, but you just work like mad, and you launch something at the end of it. And usually, I mean, like I said, I've been in hackathons where there's been like 8 or 9 teams working. So at the end of the weekend, you get 8 or 9 different projects that have launched an MVP. So you get a real sense of what's possible with that. And so you get a lot of excitement as well, obviously, in terms of people all kind of working together and trying to make some awesome stuff.
Awesome. So we're looking at, once they launch this, there's a good chance we're going to start seeing a lot of investment possibilities of awesome new ideas and concepts coming to the platform.
Yeah, and I mean, like you can, like I said, you can go from idea to like a functioning prototype at least, and so at that point you kind of get a good sense of what the product is supposed to do and how it's supposed to work, and kind of what the audience is, and sort of like kind of stuff. And then at the end of it, yeah, obviously it depends on the hackathons and how they can organize it and stuff. But I've seen hackathons that have had anywhere up to $50,000 for the winning team, and kind of things like that. So that you can get cash prizes just to win it, and then you can, obviously it's up to you at that point if you want to carry on working on it as well, and potentially start a company around that as well.
Awesome. So this is really exciting, because I think like what we've talked about here is that we have an amazing, like this blockchain is bringing all those pieces we've wanted together. It's almost like the Lego set, right? It's like we've just been given all the Lego we could dream of. And with a hackathon, so it sounds like the hackathon is just getting everyone in and go build cool shit that people are going to want to come and see, use, play with, get entertained by, whatever it is. And then at the end of that, hopefully we're going to see a lot more attractions that people can come and from the outside to use. Would that be right?
Yeah. And I was just going to say that the only other thing I would keep in mind, if you can't code, that's okay, right? Like most of these hackathons, they do need a lot of different kinds of people, right? Because you're doing the entire life cycle of launching a product in the space of a weekend. So if you can't code, you can talk to potential users and see what features they're interested in, or what particular features or functionality they're looking for. If it's a product that you want to sell, you can help to actually find customers for it, even if it's like an early customer as well. So just because you don't know how to code, it doesn't mean that you can't participate in a hackathon. You can absolutely help people figure out what, you can help the engineers figure out what they should be building. And you can use that time to get early feedback as well. Not obviously doesn't mean that you have to be there for the whole time as well. Obviously, if you're somebody like me who's going to be hacking for 48 hours straight, then you can write code for that long. But it means that, even if you're not an engineer, you can still come and participate as well. So I do encourage that as well, because one, it just helps you stay energized about the platform as well, but also the more people have some kind of ownership of what's being made, I think is really helpful as well.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Mubs, I'm going to have to hand you over to Alex. It's been so much fun. And like so many of the guests we have on here, it's like, this is the one thing, last thing I'm going to say, Alex, before you can have it, is one of the things I love about what I'm doing here with Alex on Clout Forum with Who's Got Clout. It's just a bit of fun. Who's got clout? Everyone's got clout on this platform. It's seeing every single person is like this Pandora's box of creativity, and it's absolutely amazing. So thank you for your time. I'm going to hand you over to Alex. You ready, Alex?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
So, Maps, I'm not going to ease your task, and I will say that we have a lot of things to discuss, and some of them can be a little bit hard to answer.
Okay.
The one thing very important for me, I would like to discuss and explore with you is the topic of partnerships. Having this amount of side projects that you have, do you have a lot of partnerships in there?
I mean, a lot. Yes, over the years, yes. And even on DeSo, like even with the NFT drops, I partnered with Jackley on Spookies, with Charlie Hilton on Pixel Pirates. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you kind of have to, because, well, one, because you're trying to learn a new platform and things like that. So it's always a little bit easier if you're working with somebody else, because then you get, somebody to bounce ideas off of, and kind of explore a kind of a new platform and things like that too. And also, in like a lot of cases, you're not working on this thing full time either, so you just don't have the time to kind of do everything that needs to happen. Even if you're not just talking about, like, even with the NFT, you kind of have to build a community around them. You kind of have to build the interest in the collection, and so all sorts of things like that. So it's not just about writing code or making art and doing that. There's usually just lots of things that you have to do. And so having partnerships and working with other people just kind of helps share that load, and kind of makes everybody's life a little bit easier as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And just for fun, do you have some sort of proportion in your mind among all of your more than 100 projects? So is it like 50-50? And 50% of projects you have partnerships, and
No, I mean, it varies from project to project. It depends on what everybody's bringing to the table.
No,
and
my question is not about the splitting the shares in the project. My question is, how many projects do you have like partnerships? How many projects? So I mean the proportion in the list of your projects.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit, I guess I'm a little bit unique, whereas I do like to move very quickly, and I have picked up over the years and enough for the skills where I can do things alone. Like I can go from idea to actually like fully launching and fully deploying applications, like I said, in hackathons and things in the space of a weekend. But even there, I think at least half of them, I think I've had some kind of partnership over the years. But there's some projects where you just kind of have the idea and that sparking. Like, I don't want to wait for anybody else. I don't want to go find another person. I'm so excited about it. I just want to do it, and I want to do it now. And so yeah, there's been a lot of those over the years where it's just, okay, I had this idea, I need to do it, and I need to do it right now. And so I do.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. So from what I hear, you do consider partnership as an essential thing in doing successful projects.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, like I said, I mean, like you said, I know I'm a little bit unusual in that I've been doing this for a really long time. So I have picked up a lot of the skills that, I do some UI work, I do some UX work. I'm fine with like deploying applications onto servers, and so I've had to do all of that over the years. And so I picked up the full end-to-end skills that you need to be able to do a lot of, to be able to launch these things. Not everybody is capable of doing all of that stuff, and yes, you can do it, but it's also other people have stronger are stronger with those particular skills as well. So if you want a really awesome looking website that you want to launch, then obviously working with somebody who's got really good design skills. I mean, that's why the sort of Pixel Pirates website that when we launched it looked awesome, was because Charlie made that in terms of what it was supposed to look like, and handed it off to me to implement. Had I been responsible for what the Pixel Pirates website looked like, it wouldn't have looked half as nice as it looks.
Yeah, this is the right way to split the responsibilities, but sometimes, not sometimes, it's always partnerships not only about the split of responsibilities, and it's also about the relationships between people. How do you manage these kind of things? How do you manage partnerships?
Well, I think you just have to be open and honest about what your expectations are and how much time you're going to have to spend on things. And if you go in with it with a clear sense of, okay, I've got X number of hours to work on this every week, or I've got X amount of time that I can spend on this because I've got a full-time job and I've got a family and things like that. As long as everybody is open and honest and kind of can set expectations and set timelines and things like that, I think that's often the sort of right way to handle it. If you overcommit and I think that's where issues come in, right? People expect you to do things on a certain schedule because either you haven't been clear or things weren't clear. I think that's where a lot of people run into issues. It's not with working with other people and what do you do with other people? It's like, but what's the timeline? Because I can't do this until you've done that. And if I'm now here sat waiting because you said it was going to be done by this date and it's not, I think that's really where the sort of issues come in as well.
Wow, very insightful pieces of advice, man. So it seems like you have some sort of standard for how it should be established, right? So you have some sort of step 1, step 2, step 3. So and then you can decide whether you are going to enter this partnership or not.
I'm not quite so rigid like that. It changes from platform to platform and project to project as well. I mean, I think you just, like I said, you just have to be. I try and, again, I'm in a slightly different situation in terms of lots of options, lots of opportunities. I get to kind of pick and choose the things that I want to work on just because of my history and things like that. So, I'm looking for me, it's not usually so much like technical skills and things like that. Like I'm usually looking for people who are really passionate about the thing that let's say it's a project that they want me to help with. I don't necessarily go look for who's the best engineer, but it's like, are they really interested in the idea that they're trying to solve or the problem that they're trying to solve? Do they know enough about the industry and the thing that they're trying to do? Because ultimately, it's not just about coding skills and what the website looks like. Like, are you actually solving a real problem? And have you spoken to enough people about solving that thing? That's usually what I'm looking for, is if people really have taken the time to really investigate that sort of aspect of things.
Yeah, it's you said about the passion, and it's really the vital thing to see in the man. And how do you tell that this person has a passion? Should he split the blood from his hand or send you a new PC or something like that?
Usually it's just, like I said, it's just trying, even when somebody explains to you like what they're trying to do but it's not just about what they're trying to do. It's like, why did you pick this project? Like, why are you trying to do this? And just trying to understand the people's motivations. Like, I've spoken to people in the past. It's like, well, I want to build a Facebook for pets. And I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, because Facebook's worth a lot of money. I'm like, well, that's true. But that doesn't mean that this is a good problem to solve and for you to solve it as well. So just to understand why people want to build something. And look, there's nothing wrong with trying to build things purely for money. That's fine too. In some cases, that's good reason to build things as well. But obviously, if you're trying to build a Facebook for pets, the money is probably not the best reason to do that.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thank you so much for exploring the space of partnerships. I think it will be useful for many of listeners who will see our episode today. And let's jump into another topic that I think very vital to discuss. Because before the DeSo, I didn't consider developers as a creators. I had this scheme in my mind that creators are writers, artists, musicians, showmakers, and so on and so forth. And from now on, personally, I consider developers as a creator because they're doing really nice things. I'm not talking about the designers. It's obvious that everybody will consider them as creators, but let's talk about developers. Do you consider them as a creators, and why?
Well, I think when it comes to developers, it can depend, right? Like you can go work at a very big corporation, you can go work at a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 100 company in the US, and in many cases there you get given a very specific specification and you're told to build this thing, make it look like this, and put this button here and make it this color and this size and things like that. And that kind of maker, there's not a lot of creativity there, right? Because you're basically being told, here's a script, you have to follow it exactly, and you have to make the thing. And so there's no creativity there because you're not allowed to have any creativity. But there's also a whole other world of makers and coders and things like that where you don't get anything close to that level of specificity, and you're basically just told, look, here's a problem, we need a website that solves this problem. And so there's a lot that you have to imagine, there's a lot of stuff that you have to conceive about what you have to do, what the flow that the user experiences, all the things like that you have to be very creative in coming up with a solution to the problem, and then you have to figure out how to construct it as well. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're basically handed a problem and told to figure out how to solve the problem, I think that requires a lot of creativity as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So it's from what you said, now I'm considering more entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs as a creators as well. So they're doing almost the same thing. And sometimes, often, I mean, not sometimes, but often, developers are entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've been a part of the indie hacker scene for a long time as well. And, these are like solo entrepreneurs who know how to write code, who know how to build applications and websites and things like that. And they're being creative with code because there's a problem that they're trying to solve. They're trying to ease somebody's pain in terms of something's taking too long or something's not working the way that it's supposed to work in the current system, and you have to imagine a solution to that problem, and without thinking outside of the box is like the standard answer. There is the standard term that we hear now, but that thinking outside of the box is essentially using your mind to be creative and to think about alternative ways of solving these issues. And I think you do have to be an entrepreneur kind of in a lot of cases, because like I said, it's not just about writing the code, because as somebody who's making these things, who are you making it for? Can you find those people? Can you find enough of those people who will pay you money every month so that you can earn a living to maintain that piece of software as well? So all of that stuff takes time and effort, but also it takes a lot of imagination as well.
I'll just jump in quick, Alex. Mubs, we've got Paul Burke commenting on the YouTube live in regards to this conversation. Programmer versus developer, basically saying, the difference between, a programmer or a developer in that sense. And just my piece on that, I see you guys as the architect of this virtual reality we're playing in, right? And the architects are incredibly creative. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately you do, I think part of it is sometimes we don't even know where this is going to end up, right? Like we've got certain thoughts about what social media platform is supposed to look like. We've got certain thoughts about how to support creators and things like that. We've got certain preconceived notions from the Twitters and the Facebooks and Instagrams in terms of how these and the Patreons and things like that. But I think ultimately for this thing to succeed, it's going to be something that doesn't exist right now. It's going to be something that somebody says, oh, it'd be really cool if we could do this, but I don't know if that's even possible. And then we just make it possible, right? Like it takes that creativity to say, this is what we actually need, and now let's figure out how to make it happen. And I think that's the creativity, that's the architecture bit as well, in terms of architecting solutions that you don't even know that you need right now, but making sure that, but putting the pieces in place now that those kind of things will be possible at some point when somebody else figures out we actually need these, we need these other things as well.
Thank you so much, Mobs. Well said. I have no words, and I don't know how to comment all the stuff that you've mentioned, because I think you said it perfectly, and I don't want to say it in a worse way. So, speaking about the creators and speaking about the decentralization, what values does Web3 decentralization can provide to creators on Instagram, YouTube, etc.? And will we see create NFT button under the video of YouTube?
I don't know, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know about that, just because I think YouTube's always going to have a copyright issue or something along those lines, that minting as an NFT and then having to unmint it or whatever because you don't have the copyright for it is going to, there's just too many issues for YouTube. And again, it's one of those things where, because they're so big, they can't take the risk of sort of things like that. But no, I mean, in terms of like creators and stuff, in terms of like Web3 and decentralization, I think for a large part of the population, they don't really care. I mean, I think I've said this in the past, like, 90% of the people, maybe 80% of the people on Twitter and Facebook and that, they don't really care about decentralization and Web3 and all that kind of stuff. Which is, I think, also an interesting that we didn't touch on earlier with DeSo as well, is like, it's actually one of the first implementations of blockchain technology where you're not just doing it for the sake of blockchain technology. The fact that we put a social network on top of a blockchain, but most of the people who use it have no care or no understanding that it's actually a blockchain, I think is really important as well. Yeah. Because up till now, people have been people have blockchain, they're trying to figure out what to do with it. And I think the core team here actually figured out what to do with it, which I think is awesome. But the people using it don't care that it's Web3 or blockchain or whatever. I mean, I do think Web3 as a new model for who pays for stuff. I think that, I mean, if you think about Web3, or if you consider Web2, it's like, who pays for it, right? Like Facebook pays for everything. They pay for the infrastructure, they pay for the hardware, they pay for the engineers to build all the software. And because they pay for it all, they have to figure out how to make money so that they can make all of that back. And then you get investment, then you get investors in there who want to fund it so that they can make money as well. With Web3, I think what's changed is that you go into it knowing, we have to pay for it, right? Like, we who use the platform have to pay for it, in terms of, we pay the little fees every time we make a post, we pay the little fee every time we like something, we pay the little fee every time we reclout something. We know that we pay for it. And yes, the sort of software itself is open source, and everybody, you pay for it with your time to kind of contribute, add features, add functionality. So, going into Web3, who is paying for it? We are paying for it. And I think that to me is the biggest shift from like Web2 and kind of Web3, is because we know we have to pay for it. We know that nobody else has to make a huge amount of profit on the other side of that as well. So hopefully that means that, when there's lots of money flowing around the platform, it stays with the people who actually should be earning that money, instead of, the sort of corporations and things taking the majority of that kind of away.
Well, again, you just hit me so hard that I'm speechless again. Yeah. So,
Alex, just before you go on, we've got MP3, the Slide Disciple, saying "gang gang" on YouTube in the chat there. So there's a quick shout out. And to me, Mubs, it sounds like we're taking the pimp out of the game. And in the end, they're the corrupt ones doing all the dodgy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move further and let's cut the discussions about some philosophical or just business matters. Let's talk about you and your preferences in life. As I saw in your bio and in your page, you like working in public places. Why is that? And do you have favorite places for it?
No, I mean, I've been building in public for, I don't know, for as long as I've been allowed to, I think. It's funny because I started building side projects because I used to work at a bunch of agencies, very high profile agencies. We work with lots of very large uh, corporations and things around the world. But because we were working, yeah, we had to sign NDAs and things like that, where we weren't allowed to say who we were working for, what we were building, or anything like that. So I started building side projects primarily as a way to be able to talk about what I was working on. And so, because I was building for the purpose of sharing that I was working on stuff, I started to share exactly what I was doing, when I was doing it, why I was doing it. And it ended up being one, it was awesome for me to build an audience because people were interested in kind of how I was making things and what I was making and why I was making things. But it also ended up being like a way for people to kind of learn as well. And I think that's one of the reasons I love to kind of build in public, is one, it holds me accountable. When I tell people I'm going to build something, if I don't build it, people are always angry at me for not building something. But also just kind of pulled a whole bunch of people along with me who were like, oh, if I can watch Mubs make something on Twitter or on YouTube, sometimes I stream some stuff as well on Twitch as well occasionally. People are like, well, if there's people out there who are doing it live on stream, I can do it as well. So that to me was kind of awesome as well.
Yeah, and maybe I misunderstood your message in your page, but I was asking more about the places. I mean, outside that you like to work. So do you like working on, I mean, in squares, in restaurants, in something like
I
this?
get you.
So I had a picture from you where you were sitting just in the street and doing some coding. And
That was that was in Bryant Park in New York City. I was actually down there visiting, and yeah, I've been very fortunate where I've been able to. I've had a laptop for the last 15 years where I've done all of my work from some form of laptop. So I haven't had I haven't had an office job. I think the last office job I had was in 2000. In July of 2000, I started doing
20 years ago.
Yeah, in July of 2000 was the last time we had. June of 2000 last time I went to an office to actually work. Since then, I'm working from home or working from wherever I wanted to. But I've had a little laptop, so I can just close it down and open it up and start working in coffee shops, or if I'm visiting people, I can work as well. I've been very fortunate that I build things that I can work from wherever in the world I want to as well. But no, so I've done work from. I mean, even when I'm at home, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to work from my home office. I go
Yeah.
upstairs. I go work from the garden instead, and kind of stuff like that too. But I've done lots of time where I just spend like the entire day at a coffee shop as well, and stuff like that too.
And do you have a favorite place where you want to come back as soon as possible when you are doing coding?
No, I mean, I think I mean one. I find I do most of my work when I feel like doing my work, right?
Yeah,
So this is
nothing
the
else
one
matters.
thing.
Like
Yeah, it almost just
like in the Son of Metallica.
yeah. I find that I used to work in offices all the time, and you have to be there for 8 hours a day, whether you feel like working or not.
Yeah,
And there's some times where it's like you can try and sit down and struggle, and you try and do your work for 8 hours, and you get a certain amount accomplished, you get a little bit done, and then I've been once I started working from home, I realized that if I really want to do the work in like an hour or two, I can do what I would have done in a full 8-hour day. So what I try and do now is just let my mind do what my mind wants to do. And then eventually I know I'll come back to like the work I have to do during the day. Like, you know, like I still have a full-time job. I have things I have to do. But if I let my mind actually say, okay, now's the time, now's when I feel right that I have to do that stuff, I can do it so quickly that it doesn't matter that I've spent the most of the rest of my day doing something else, because my mind is like in the right, it's just in that it's in the right mood, in that right state where I can actually push through it all and actually accomplish what I need to in the really short amount of time that I actually specify that I need to do that work.
Yeah, awesome, man. So let's get back to very short questions, and maybe we'll get some short answers, but it's not necessary. It's up to you. What type of guy are you in food?
Spicy?
Indian or chili or something like this?
I mean, I like all kinds of food, but yeah, I tend to go through. Yeah, I even like Mexican food, spicy, Indian food, spicy.
Awesome.
I do like spicy food.
Yeah, me too. Best IT project outside DeSo, not yours, just that you like.
That's a tough one. So many of them. I mean, I'm really pumped about Web3 specifically. I just think that transition from, you know, centrally owned things and centrally controlled things to a more decentralized, not fully, it doesn't have to be fully decentralized, but just more people have a say, more people have an impact. It doesn't have to be every user has an individual say, but just giving more people who want to have a say to actually have a say, I think is really important. And not just in decentralized social, but decentral finance. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening in property management and property tech as well. You know, not just big real estate people owning lots of land and building lots of things. Now there's lots of lots of smaller groups, a lot of individuals now coming together to build sustainable things for the future as well.
Yeah. What can fire your ass up when you are working in a team on the project?
Fire up in what way? Like fire up in terms of getting mad, or?
Yeah.
Usually I don't like it when people, like I hate it when a engineer will tell somebody who's not an engineer that they shouldn't have a say in engineering, and I hate it when a designer will tell me I shouldn't worry about colors and what the website looks like and things like that. Like I don't believe that people have just one role. I think everybody has, if they want to, they should be allowed to have a say in all aspects, because at the end of the day, I'm not shipping code that runs, I'm shipping code that people use. And so if I care about what the website looks like or what the application looks like and how it functions, I should be able to have a say on that as well.
Yeah, of course. At least you should listen to the guy, and then you can make a decision.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, baseball, football, or basketball?
Well, if we're talking about American football, not American football, if we're talking about English football, then English football.
What's your favorite team?
Liverpool.
Liverpool, awesome.
Yep.
Is it because of Mohamed Salah?
No, well, I grew up in England, so I've been a Liverpool fan since I was about 8 years old. Actually, 7 years old.
Oh man! So you have the joy to watch the mighty Michael Owen Star
Michael
Rising.
Owen, Robbie Fowler as well was awesome. I go back. My first Liverpool team was actually like from the 80s, so Kenny Dalglish,
Oh,
Ian Rush, sort of that era as well.
awesome, awesome. Man. So you have a gamer chair. Are you a gamer?
Not so much anymore, but yeah, I used to. I used to play more, but not so much anymore.
Was it FIFA the favorite game?
I used to football manager pre
Yeah.
FIFA and all that kind of stuff as well. I used to work for a company called Riot Games as well. So they built
Mhm.
the League of Legends
Really? Wow.
game as well. So I played that a lot while I was working with them as well. So I'm a big fan of that as well. I'm a big fan of esports, and I think that's another area that sort of NFTs and Web3 and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff is going to
absolutely.
have a huge impact as well. So I keep an eye on what Riot is up to and try and stay up on League of Legends as
Legends.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
League of Legends is the biggest game right now in the in cyber industry, in cyber
Yep.
sport, I mean. And that's awesome to hear that
They
you
just had
worked on
their
that.
they just had their world's championship as well. So they make a big effort at that every year as well. So they've really spent a lot of time and a lot of money to build up the esports part of that. And I think they've done a fantastic
Yeah, and
job on that.
yeah, and the reason why I'm saying it because I've just read the report about the cyber sport industry maybe a week ago, and it was said that League of Legends is the first one in terms of different criteria, in terms of tournaments, money, and so on and so forth. And the second game is CS:GO, and now it's PGL going on in Europe, in Stockholm. And I've just noticed that there is a crypto industry representation called the company called BitGet. So they are sponsors of it. I hope DeSo will consider this opportunity as well in future.
Yeah.
So my last question for you, man. If you were on CNBC now, to whom would you like to say hello from the screen of TV?
Well, I would have to say it to my wife and kids who are upstairs right now. But if I was on TV, I think it would be pretty amazing to be able to give them a shout out, because they put up with a lot with me in terms of just like suddenly like 1 minute I'll be sitting there on the sofa next to them, and then the next minute I'll have vanished because I've been like, I've got an idea, I can go work on it. And, I just go and find a quiet place to work, and then they don't see me for hours because I'm just hacking away on stuff. So they put up a lot over the years.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you so much for all answers and for all insight that you've provided during our talk. I think the information that we have here is very essential to anyone who are doing code or doing some sort of business, and just knowing you, it's a perfect way to learning.
Awesome. No, I really appreciate that. But I'm, like I said, I've been fortunate in that I was in the right place at the right time. In England, some random person offered me a job from Australia, but somehow ended up in San Fran as well. So I've been in the right place at the right time. Obviously worked hard to kind of to get to where I am, but I try and remember the opportunities and sort of where I can pay that forward. I try to as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark.
All righty. It's always nice being able to sit back and enjoy that. So now, before we let you go, Mubs, have you got a few more minutes just before we close? Because I've got a couple of questions from the crowd for you.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, awesome. So first one is from the YouTube fan club, our favorites. I love the fact that we can have this live stream, have the podcast, and it's the decentralized podcast, right?
Yeah.
To just be built from everyone. So this one is so BitClout Ryan Elf has asked thoughts on bots with the referral system. And then MP3 was commenting battle bots and a little talking about they're going to need sniper NFT bots. But so what's your thoughts on, your thoughts on bots with the referral system as one of the challenges we're facing at the moment?
Yeah, the referral system is kind of a sore point, I think, with a lot of people in terms of, I mean, I understand why it's needed, but also it seems to be kind of a waste of money at this point because, you know, the people who are being referred don't seem to be sticking around and actually being active people kind of on the platform and things like that. So I can understand why a lot of people are concerned about it too. But yeah, so I think, I mean, obviously, you know, people will find ways to automate whatever they can to try and make some money and things like that. I mean, me personally, what I think, you know, the reason that it worked for companies like Coinbase and PayPal and things like that was that you essentially had to put some of your own money in to get like the matching, you know, like I think with Coinbase it was like if you deposit $100 you got $100 extra, kind of things like that. I know it can't exactly work like that with DeSo, but I would have liked to see, rather than just you have to verify your kind of who you are, like if there was some way that you had to contribute something to earn that referral instead.
Awesome. And so last question before we surrender the show, and this has been juicy. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome.
So this one is from Brutal, who has replied to your post asking for any questions. Good old Brutal. He's asked, and this is foreign to me, so hopefully it makes sense to you.
I think I've already seen it, so yeah.
Yeah, when DeSo SDK at NPPJS with mint function that takes image and uploads it to BitClout. So maybe you can break down what that question means for us.
Basically, he's asking when there'll be some open source piece of software which will run some JavaScript code and NP. Basically, he's talking about a node module that you can install into any application, which will take a file and upload it to the BitClout servers, make a post with the image, turn it into an NFT, which you can then do whatever you want with afterwards. Probably not in a while because most of my software is not written in JavaScript, so it's not going to be easy for me to build that out like that exactly. But it's one of the things I think about kind of a lot is like, what do I do with the software after I've written it? Do I keep it closed and keep it, you know, my secret source for all, you know, all the stuff that I'm working on, or do I kind of open source it and kind of share it with the world as well? The main issue that I'm running into with the sort of Nixar software specifically is that, you know, it's never going to be the kind of thing that, you know, any user on the platform could just kind of copy and just kind of run and kind of have it function the way that you want it to. There's too much behind the scenes happening, and somebody who knows how to code has to be the one who kind of operates it and kind of things like that. So that's the bit I'm struggling with, is like I don't know a way to make it easier right now, just in terms of the sort of the sort of state of the software world, in terms of the software world that we live in right now. But hopefully at some point it'll get to the point where it's a little bit more point and click, and a little bit easier to kind of function, so that I can make it available to kind of everybody else, but not yet.
Awesome. All right, Mubs, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate taking the time. It's been absolutely, it's a personal pleasure as well, because I've, you know, you've been around in all these different places, but I've never had a chance to talk to you. So it's kind of one of the reasons I love this podcast, is I get personal time one-on-one with all the coolest people in the world. So Appreciate it, Mubs.
Thanks
So
for having
thank
me
you
on.
everyone for watching. Absolute pleasure, and let's do it again soon. So big thank you to everyone watching the live stream, the fan club that's come along. You've well deserved it, Mubs. You've offered us so much information here. Please do, everyone, share this out, and the replay will be up very soon. Alex puts that up on Clout Forum. When it does come up, please do share it out and get it out there, because I think the conversation we've had here, it's got so much good knowledge there for people that are trying to work this all out. So again, thanks, Mubs. Also, for everyone, we've got another podcast in about 24 hours, almost exactly, 11 p.m. EST, November 5th. So that's Friday in tomorrow in US. And that is with Kat Ramdeen, who is not only an incredible actor from the Supernatural series and other things, but Mubs, I've been looking into her work and seeing her post and things. She's actually very switched on, building her own computers these days and getting right into it and supporting DeSo. So make sure you join us for that conversation in about 24 hours time.
Before you close,
Mubs,
please, one last question, Mubs. Maybe you've heard about the Supernatural. Have you watched it?
I watched all 14 seasons of it, so absolutely, yes.
I'm a big fan of it as well, and I'm very looking forward to
it was 15 seasons, I forget. There was that weird
15,
thing with the
15.
with the pandemic where they had to split it up. So yes, absolutely. I did. I watched all of it, yes.
and she played the role of Alexa Jones, the girl who was you know, yeah.
Yep. No, yeah, I'm a big fan of the show, and I've been following Kat on DeSo for a long time as well. So I'm
Man, if you will have time, if you will have time tomorrow, just jump in and we'll give you some time to talk with her as well.
Awesome. I will. Awesome.
all right, guys. Fantastic. Thanks again, and we'll see everyone in 24 hours.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.